Good news. In a shocking wave of rumor-fueled excitement that has fans buzzing across Los Angeles and beyond, explosive whispers swirl through the world of the bold and the beautiful as insiders tease that Lisa Yamada's character Luna is facing a dramatic exit that will send shockwaves through every corner of the Forrester universe. And while wild headlines scream that Lisa Yamada is fired today, the real intrigue lies in the fictional storm unfolding on screen, where Luna's fate appears sealed as the character prepares to vanish from the canvas next month in a storyline so emotional, so ruthless, and so game-changing that viewers will barely have time to catch their breath. Because from the moment Luna stepped into the lives of RJ, Poppy, and the Forrester family, her presence was never meant to be quiet or temporary. And now the very secrets that once empowered her are turning into the chains that will drag her down, as the truth about her manipulations, her lies, and her hidden agenda finally claw their way into the light, beginning with RJ's growing suspicion that Luna's tears are no longer sincere, but calculated, rehearsed, and weaponized, prompting him to confide in Brooke, who immediately senses a familiar pattern of deception that reminds her of past heartbreaks and warns that no one who enters the Forrester family under false pretenses ever escapes without consequences, while Steffi, sharper and more unforgiving than ever, becomes the driving force behind Luna's downfall after uncovering a trail of inconsistencies that connect Luna to a series of conveniently timed coincidences, from overheard conversations to mysteriously leaked information that nearly destroyed Forrester Creations. And as Steffi begins pulling threads, the tapestry of Luna's double life unravels at a terrifying pace, revealing that her relationship with RJ was never about love, but access, protection, and survival, a revelation that devastates RJ and sends him spiraling into guilt, anger, and self-loathing as he realizes he trusted the wrong person while pushing away those who truly cared for him, including his own family. And as the walls close in, Luna turns to Poppy in desperation, demanding help, only to learn that even her own mother can no longer shield her from the consequences of her choices, because Poppy herself is drowning in secrets that are about to explode. Secrets tied to Luna's past actions that could permanently destroy what little credibility she has left in Los Angeles. And as the mother-daughter bond fractures under the weight of betrayal, Luna's isolation becomes complete, leaving her vulnerable to the final blow when Bill Spencer enters the picture, having quietly conducted his own investigation after sensing that something about Luna never quite added up. And when Bill confronts her with undeniable proof of her manipulation, financial deception, and emotional sabotage, Luna realizes the game is over, but true to form, she refuses to go. Quietly, launching one last desperate attempt to flip the narrative by portraying herself as the victim, claiming she was used, misunderstood, and abandoned by powerful people who feared what she knew. But this time her performance falls flat, because the damage is too extensive, the receipts too damning, and the patience of everyone around her completely exhausted, culminating in a brutal showdown at Forrester Creations where Steffi publicly exposes Luna's lies in front of Ridge, Brooke, and Eric, forcing Luna to face the humiliation she spent months inflicting on others. And in that moment, Luna's world collapses, not with screaming or chaos, but with a chilling silence as she realizes there is no one left willing to defend her, no ally left in her corner, and no path forward in Los Angeles, setting the stage for her sudden disappearance next month. A vanishing act that raises more questions than answers as Luna packs up her life overnight and leaves without saying goodbye, igniting speculation that she may be running from more than just heartbreak, because whispers suggest legal trouble could be looming, or that Luna may be pregnant, or even that she's hiding a final secret capable of detonating the Forrester family from afar. And as RJ grapples with the emotional aftermath of loving someone who never truly existed, the show shifts focus to the collateral damage left behind, with Brooke questioning how many times history must repeat itself before the Forresters learn to recognize danger when it walks through the door, while Steffi wrestles with an unexpected wave of guilt despite knowing she did the right thing, and Poppy is left shattered, forced to confront the reality that her parenting choices helped shape the monster the world now condemns. And though Luna is gone, her shadow lingers, haunting conversations, relationships, and boardroom decisions. As characters speculate whether her exit is truly the end or merely the calm before an even more explosive return, Because in the world of the bold and the beautiful, no disappearance is ever permanent, no goodbye ever final, and no secret ever stays buried forever, leaving fans torn between relief that Luna's reign of chaos has ended and anticipation that her story may be far from over, making this rumored exit one of the most talked about, emotionally charged, and suspense-filled arcs of the year, proving once again that in Los Angeles, good news for some always comes at a devastating cost for others, and when Luna disappears next month, she won't just leave town. She'll leave a scar that the Forresters may never fully heal from. And just when everyone in Los Angeles believes the nightmare is finally over, the aftermath of Luna's sudden disappearance begins to ripple outward in ways no one could have predicted. Because absence, in the world of the bold and the beautiful, often speaks louder than presence, and Luna's vanishing act becomes a constant, unsettling hum beneath every conversation, every glance, and every fragile reconciliation. Starting with RJ, who initially tries to convince himself that walking away from Luna is a blessing, that her exit is the clean break he desperately needs to heal, only to find that unresolved questions are far more dangerous than painful truths, as he replays every moment, every confession, every tear she ever shed, wondering which parts were real and which were carefully scripted lies, and this obsessive doubt begins to consume him, interfering with his work at Forrester Creations and straining his relationships with Brooke and Ridge, who worry that RJ is punishing himself for sins that were never truly his, while Brooke, haunted by her own history of loving the wrong people, tries to gently guide her son toward forgiveness, reminding him that manipulation thrives on empathy, and that his kindness was never a weakness, even if it was exploited, yet her words only partially reach him. Because RJ can't shake the feeling that Luna didn't just leave behind emotional wreckage, but planted something far more dangerous before she disappeared, a ticking time bomb of information, secrets, or leverage that could detonate at any moment. A fear that gains credibility when Steffi receives an anonymous message weeks later containing a single sentence that chills her to the bone. You may have one, but you don't know everything. With no signature, no traceable origin, and no explanation, sending Steffi into full defensive mode as she immediately suspects Luna is still watching from the shadows, refusing to accept that her silence means surrender, prompting Steffi to tighten security at Forrester Creations, re-examine old files, and revisit every decision Luna had influence over, determined not to be blindsided again, while Ridge, initially dismissive of the threat, begins to realize that Steffi's instincts are rarely wrong, especially when it comes to protecting the family. And as they dig deeper, they uncover small but troubling anomalies, altered schedules, missing documents, and a mysterious offshore account that briefly intersected with Forrester funds before disappearing, suggesting that Luna's schemes may have extended further than anyone realized. And as these discoveries mount, tension erupts between Ridge and Brooke, with Brooke fearing that reopening old wounds will only prolong the damage, while Ridge insists that the truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to ensure Luna's chapter is truly closed. And meanwhile, Poppy's storyline takes a darker, more introspective turn as she becomes the emotional casualty no one knows how to help, blamed by some, pitted by others, and avoided by most, as she struggles with the unbearable guilt of realizing that her attempts to protect Luna ultimately enabled her worst impulses, leading Poppy to spiral into isolation and self-recrimination. Haunted by memories of warning signs she ignored and boundaries she failed to enforce, and as she confesses to Lee that she fears Luna may have inherited more than just her charm, but also a dangerous survival instinct sharpened by years of instability, Lee coldly reminds her that love without accountability is not love at all, forcing Poppy to confront a truth she has spent years running from. That Luna didn't just make bad choices. She mastered deception as a lifestyle, and that realization pushes Poppy to take a bold, desperate step by attempting to track Luna down herself. Not to save her, but to demand answers and closure, a decision that terrifies Lee, who warns that reopening contact could unleash consequences far worse than unanswered questions. Yet Poppy refuses to back down, driven by a mother's need to know whether her daughter is alive, safe, or plotting something catastrophic. And as she quietly begins her search, viewers are given tantalizing hints that Luna is indeed still out there, shown through cryptic scenes of a woman resembling her watching news coverage of Forrester creations from afar, her face partially obscured, her expression unreadable, leaving fans to speculate whether she's consumed by regret or fueled by resentment. And while Luna remains physically absent, her psychological presence becomes overwhelming, infiltrating relationships across the canvas, especially between RJ and Steffi, who clash over how much power Luna truly held, with RJ insisting that Luna was reacting to pressure and fear, while Steffi refuses to soften her stance, arguing that intention does not erase impact, and their conflict exposes deeper fractures about trust, accountability, and who ultimately bears responsibility when families implode from within. And as Eric Forrester, weakened but wiser than ever, observes these battles, he delivers a sobering reminder that the Forrester legacy has survived betrayals far greater than Luna's. Yet survival does not mean immunity, warning that complacency is the enemy of longevity, a lesson that resonates deeply when yet another anonymous tip surfaces, hinting that Luna may have copied sensitive Forrester designs before leaving town, reigniting fears of corporate espionage and intellectual theft. And as panic spreads, Bill Spencer re-enters the storyline with renewed intensity, revealing that he, too, has reason to believe Luna's disappearance was strategic rather than impulsive, suggesting she may be laying low until the moment is right to resurface with leverage that could cripple both Forrester Creations and Spencer Publications, a theory that unsettles even Steffi, who begins to question whether forcing Luna out without fully dismantling her network was a mistake. And as alliances shift and paranoia rises, the emotional toll becomes impossible to ignore, with Brooke confronting Ridge about the cost of perpetual warfare, asking how many more young lives must be destroyed before the cycle of suspicion and control finally ends, while Ridge counters that naivete has always been this family's greatest vulnerability, and their argument echoes the central question of Luna's entire arc. Was she a calculated villain exploiting a powerful dynasty, or a deeply damaged young woman shaped by circumstance and desperation? A question the show deliberately refuses to answer definitively, keeping viewers emotionally divided, and as the month draws closer to what insiders hint could be Luna's official disappearance arc conclusion, the tension reaches a boiling point when Poppy finally uncovers a lead suggesting Luna may have fled the country under an assumed identity, a revelation that devastates her while simultaneously confirming everyone's worst fears, because running means guilt, planning, and intent. And as Poppy collapses under the weight of that realization, Lee delivers one final, brutal truth, that sometimes the most loving act a parent can do is let go completely, even if it means never getting answers. And as the Forrester family braces for whatever comes next, the storyline leaves viewers suspended in uneasy anticipation, knowing that Luna's silence is not peace, but strategy, and that in the bold and the beautiful, disappearances are rarely endings but preludes, setting the stage for a future return that could rewrite everything they thought they knew. Because whether Luna comes back seeking redemption, revenge, or absolution, one thing is certain: her exit has permanently altered the emotional DNA of the canvas, ensuring that even in her absence, Luna remains one of the most polarizing and consequential figures to ever pass through the gates of Forrester Creations. And as fans debate whether this is truly good news or merely the eye of the storm, the show once again proves that in the world of high fashion, power, and passion, no secret ever truly leaves town. It just waits for the perfect moment to come back. As the days stretch into weeks and Luna's absence hardens into an eerie new normal, the emotional vacuum she leaves behind begins to expose fault lines that had long been buried beneath polished smiles and designer gowns. Because without a clear villain to confront, the characters are forced to confront themselves, starting with RJ, whose grief mutates into a quiet recklessness that alarms everyone around him, as he throws himself into work with a manic intensity, staying late at Forrester Creations, revisiting old sketches Luna once praised, and questioning whether any of his creative successes were truly his own or subtly guided by her unseen hand, a doubt that erodes his confidence and pushes him dangerously close to walking away from the family business altogether, prompting Brooke to stage a raw, emotional intervention where she admits her own failures as a mother, acknowledging that her instinct to shield her children from pain may have inadvertently left them unprepared for betrayal. And in that moment, RJ finally breaks, confessing that what haunts him most is not Luna's lies, but the possibility that he loved her anyway. Even after suspecting the truth, a confession that reframes the entire storyline from one of deception to one of tragic human vulnerability. While Steffi, observing this unraveling from a distance, struggles with the guilt she refuses to name. Because despite being vindicated, she can't escape the realization that her crusade to expose Luna May have accelerated a collapse that could have ended differently if compassion had entered the equation sooner, and this internal conflict manifests in her marriage, as Finn senses her growing emotional distance and worries that Steffi's need for control is once again overshadowing her capacity for empathy, reigniting fears that unresolved trauma is quietly dictating her choices. And as tensions rise, Eric Forrester calls a rare family meeting, not to discuss business or scandal, but legacy, delivering a heartfelt monologue about how power without reflection breeds cycles of destruction, reminding them that every outsider they cast out leaves a mark on the family's soul, a speech that visibly rattles Ridge, who has always prided himself on decisiveness, yet now finds himself questioning whether strength sometimes lies in restraint rather than dominance. And just as the family begins to stabilize emotionally, another unsettling development emerges when a low-level fashion house debuts a line bearing an uncanny resemblance to unreleased Forrester designs, reigniting fears that Luna did not simply disappear, but seeded chaos in her wake. A move that forces Steffi and Ridge into crisis mode and fuels Bill Spencer's growing suspicion that Luna is operating several steps ahead, using distance as camouflage while orchestrating damage remotely. And though no concrete proof links Luna to the theft, the timing is too precise to ignore, pushing Bill to quietly expand his investigation beyond domestic borders, hinting that Luna's story may soon intersect with international intrigue, while Poppy, meanwhile, reaches her emotional breaking point when her search yields a final, ambiguous clue, a hotel receipt dated days after Luna's disappearance, paid in cash and signed with a name that isn't hers, confirming that Luna planned her escape long before the final confrontation. A realization that crushes Poppy's last remaining hope that her daughter left impulsively, rather than strategically, and in a moment of devastating clarity, Poppy admits that she no longer recognizes the person Luna has become, accepting that the child she raised and the woman who vanished may be two entirely different people. And this acceptance becomes her quiet form of closure, even as it isolates her further from those who still demand answers, and as the narrative shifts toward the future. Subtle foreshadowing begins to surface, lingering camera shots on unanswered phones, encrypted emails intercepted but never decoded, and a recurring motif of mirrors reflecting fractured identities, all suggesting that Luna's disappearance is less an ending than a transformation. And while the characters attempt to move forward, forging new alliances and repairing strained bonds, the audience is left with the unmistakable sense that Luna's silence is intentional, that she is waiting, watching, evolving, and when the time comes, her return, whether in physical form or through a revelation too explosive to ignore, will force every character to confront not just what she did, but why they allowed it to happen, cementing her arc as a haunting reminder that in the bold and the beautiful, the most dangerous characters are not those who scream the loudest, but those who leave quietly, carrying the truth with them into the shadows, where it can grow, mutate, and one day return to claim its price.